Hello and welcome to Wineskins, a program featuring reflections on the lives of the saints and the sacred scriptures, along with a variety of topics and issues from a Catholic perspective. I'm your host, Father Jim Korda. Our show is sponsored by the annual Diocesan Appeal, the Catholic Communication Campaign, and St. Paul's Catholic Books and Gifts, a division of the Society of St. Paul. On our show today, we will talk about the Vatican II document on Ecumenism. We will also hear more about the life of St. Stephen Martyr and the readings for this Nativity of the Lord Christmas Day. That and more on Wineskins. In our current issue today, we will hear from Nancy Voitus. Joining me again is Nancy Voitus, who is the Executive Director of Catholic Charities for Mahoning, Trumbull, and Columbiana Counties. Welcome back to Wineskins.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Father.
And Merry Christmas to you today.
Thank you.
You know, it's a blessing.
Today is Christmas.
It is, and it's a blessing to have you on the show to talk about Catholic Charities, especially during this great time of the year of giving, giving from our hearts, giving from our wants, and giving time, talent, and treasure. How important is it, and how has it been important over these many years for Catholic Charities to rely on the gratitude and the graciousness and the generosity of so many people over the years?
Well, you really hit the nail on the head and expressed it so beautifully. Without people's generosity and their gifts that they give us, particularly of great support for the Diocesan Appeal that they've provided, and through many other ways as well, we couldn't do the work we do. So the work that we rely on, while we're helping others through financial help, we're able to do that because people are helping us. So throughout this whole year, we've had such generosity, not only in the support of the appeal and the support of other drives such as the First Step for Change and the Warm Hearts, Warm Hands, those different special collections that people have given money for. We passed through a number of donations for the people in Ukraine. We have had people do other things such as donating blankets. We had a student in Canfield who collected over 100 blankets for us for our homeless program. People donating items all the time. St. Michael's did several drives for us where they collected hygiene and cleaning products and snacks and stocking stuffers and all kinds of things, Christmas, Easter baskets. So the generosity of others is really what makes us be able to do the work that we do. Even when we've asked for people for creative little things, they come through. We always have somebody coming through for that, for, just different ways that they donate to us. We were fortunate to have a golf outing this year, which was our first venture into that in a long time, that benefited Christina House. And it was all women, and we raised over $25,000. It was a wonderful generosity on top of the regular giving that people do. Let's
talk briefly about the collaboration and the efforts to work together, because it's not just Catholic Charities that does all the work. You rely also on other entities. You rely on parishes. Why is collaboration crucial for the work of Catholic Charities?
Well, there's that kind of cliche setting, it takes a village. It does take the collaboration of all of us. We probably worked closer with St. Vincent de Paul this year than any other year. Just the generosity that people give to all of us and the way that we're all able to work together. We collaborate a lot with Ursuline Ministries and Beatitude House. What parishes are able to do in our different locations, is very important. One of the priests had said to me, he said, we're all in the same family, so we all need to kind of help each other. And that's true. We all need to work together because not any one of us can really solve some of the problems we're trying to address alone. But by putting us all together, we're able to, sometimes if we can't do something, somebody else might be able to do something. So, and it's not just the Catholic entities, although those are really important. Working with other organizations in the community, like the Salvation Army and the United Ways, and that is also, really important because we're all here to try to help those who are less fortunate, that are more vulnerable, to make the community a better place.
We know that it's the work of Catholic Charities to minister to the poor, to the needy, to those in need. And that's not just during Christmas time,
Right.
but that's every day of the year. Why is it important for us to remind ourselves that these needs are there always?
It's very important to remind ourselves of that because a lot of times people think the holidays is when you get the most requests, and it's actually not, because so many people are so generous around the holidays. And so at any given place, you can find help for, especially children. You want to make sure they have a good Christmas and a good holiday. But we see spikes in our requests for help in April. We see spikes for our requests in June. We see those spikes when it's back to school time. I mean, that's when we really see that people think, oh, you guys must slow down like in the winter. No, we actually get more busy when the spring comes, especially. So it's important all year long, and we try to be stewards of what we get to make it last all year. But there are times when there's certain times a year when we really need help that you wouldn't think normally of because it's not a holiday.
Yeah. Well, we certainly want to thank the folks that are with us that are so generous,
Yes.
especially during the diocesan appeal, but also during the holidays like Christmas and those times where there is that special outreach through Catholic Charities. And so we thank them for their contributions, but we remind them that they can contribute anytime throughout the year, especially through the diocesan appeal, but also directly to Catholic Charities, even through their parish. And we
Yes.
thank those parishes that work collaboratively with Catholic Charities and with you to bring about the kingdom and to minister to people's needs. So thank you,
Yes.
Nancy, for directing that and for making sure that people are fed and clothed and housed. And we thank you for
Well,
that.
thank you for your support, and we certainly appreciate all of that.
For Wineskins, I'm Father Jim Korda. The Feast of St. Stephen is celebrated tomorrow. To tell us more about this first martyr is Anthony Huff. He is from St. Angela Merici Church in Youngstown.
The Feast of St. Stephen has been celebrated in the West since the 5th century. St. Stephen was a deacon in the early church, and he had been assigned by the apostles to distribute food to the poor. We read in the Acts of the Apostles that he worked great signs and wonders among the people, and that certain Jews would engage him in argument, but he always confounded them with his wisdom. Ultimately, they made false charges against him, brought in false witnesses, and succeeded in having him stoned to death. According to legend, the relics of St. Stephen were discovered near the north gate of the city of Jerusalem, and the Bishop of Jerusalem had the relics transferred to St. Sion near the cenacle. Later, a basilica was constructed in his honor, and the relics were transferred there in 439. The basilica was destroyed by the Persians in 614 and was eventually replaced by an oratory. It was again destroyed in 1187. After the evacuations in 1882, the church was rebuilt and consecrated in 1900. It stands near the École Biblique of the Dominicans. The distribution of St. Stephen's relics to Prague, Northern Africa, Constantinople, and Rome has served to foster devotion to this saint. The Church of St. Stephen in Rome is one of the Latin Station churches. In the opening prayer of the Mass, we ask that we may love our enemies in imitation of St. Stephen, who prayed for his persecutors. St. Augustine pointed out that this saint had the privilege of having his martyrdom described in the Acts of the Apostles, chapters 6 and 7. In many ways, his court trial and martyrdom were similar to what Christ experienced during his passion. The prayer after communion relates the martyrdom of St. Stephen to the Christmas season, as it states, "The love that brought Christ from heaven to earth raised Stephen from earth to heaven. Love was Stephen's weapon by which he gained every battle. Love inspired him to reprove those who erred, to make them amend. Love led him to pray for those who stoned him, to save them from punishment." Christ may love the stairway that will enable all Christians to climb to heaven. Hold fast to it, therefore, in all sincerity, give one another practical proof of it, and by your progress in it, make your ascent together. Stephen is a patron of all deacons, teaching them to serve others out of love and to remain ever faithful in the defense of Christ's teaching. For Wineskins, I am Anthony Huff.
Welcome to our segment called Year of Faith, celebrating the 16 documents of the Second Vatican Council. I'm Father Jim Korda.
And I'm Father Jeffrey Mickler of the Society of St. Paul.
The document that we will discuss today is the Decree on Ecumenism.
Ecumenism, it is an essential part of our faith today. It has to do with the Church's relations with the other ecclesial communities within Christianity, whether they're the Orthodox communities, the evangelical communities, etc. And this document set us on a very profound new course in our relationship with the other believing communities of the world.
Let's talk about that word, ecumenism. Is it different than the word ecumenical?
Well, they're both interrelated. They have the same roots. Ecumenical is an adjective, so we have an ecumenical spirit. We have an ecumenical movement. These words are an attempt to really see the universal believing community in a new light and to have a new attitude towards the other faith communities. I'm old enough to remember the pre-Vatican II attitude. We were right, they were wrong, have nothing to do with them, pray that they change their minds, and who knows what they're up to. And that was sort of the attitude that permeated the Church and the people of God. Now, because of this document, we are able to meet with, worship with, learn from the other communities, and build, I think, a more stable civilization on earth while we have a humbler attitude in our relation to them and a humbler attitude in our relationship with God himself.
I'm wondering if healing needs to take place or has taken place over these 50 years. For example, I remember when I was first ordained and a woman had asked me about her daughter who was getting married outside of the church for whatever reason. And she really wanted to go to the wedding, but wasn't able to because we did not encourage them to do that. How has that changed? And has it changed? Is it appropriate for us to talk about that?
Well, it's only partially changed because in an ecumenical dialogue, you need two groups to be talking. And although we have extended the olive branch to all the faiths of the world, especially within Christianity, many of them would prefer not to have any ecumenical encounter with Catholics. So it's a long, arduous process. But I have to say, for example, in the evangelical churches, when I was growing up, 90% of them, I would guess, would think Catholics were not Christian. They were pagans, that they were following Baal or some other ancient god or goddesses. Now, because of multiple factors, many of the evangelical churches, they'll see us as Christians. Heretical Christians, it's true, but at least as Christians. There'll still be whole segments of the evangelical community that still sees us in the traditional pagan way. So you can see how progress has been made, but it's a tough, arduous road to increase understanding in all directions, our understanding of them and their understanding of us.
You know how oftentimes when we name ourselves or label ourselves as Catholics, we don't just say Catholics, we always say Catholic Christians. It's almost redundant, isn't it?
Well, it is, but it came about because so many would not recognize Catholicism as being a truly Christian faith. Progress has been made in that area thanks to this document and the attitude that seminarians, priests, bishops, laity have had, so that we do have various prayer groups, we have even mutual retreats together, And we listen to the faith journey of others as they listen to ours. And so the walls are breaking down ever so slowly, but in an important direction.
Let's talk about that whole mandate of unity. And I think that's really what the document is encouraging and talking about as Christ's mandate to us that they may be one as we are one. How does that impact us, and how is that drawn out of this document itself?
Yes, well, Jesus' last prayer really for his disciples was just that. He knew what was coming. He knew there would be divisions. He knew that there would be conflict. In his divine nature, he understood these things, but he prayed that somehow this believing community would have unity of heart, mind, and soul. I think we're getting closer to that, but we're not getting closer on a unity of church structure or church institutions. But this is a process the Holy Spirit has to work out between all sincere believers and people with an open heart that allows the Spirit of God to move into them.
And I oftentimes go back to that concept that ecumenism is really a dialogue. Mm-hmm. It's a talking, it's a speaking, it's a listening. It's not just preaching to, but it's actually talking and listening and discerning what is it that we have in common? What is it that we can build on instead of what is it that really divides us?
Mm-hmm. And many times we'll find when people of two different Christian faiths get together, we have preconceptions. You Catholics believe in A, B, C, and D. And we say, no, we don't. Or we might say, oh, you Protestants act E, F, G, H. And they'll say, we do? We try to define the others rather than let them define themselves. And in the process, there's been a lot of confusion over the years and over the centuries. And we're in a position now where, at least from the Catholic perspective, we're making the effort.
I think that so often for us as Catholics is that when we were schooled in the faith and taught about the faith, things were not always explained to us. This is why we believe what we believe. How important is it for us today as a knowledgeable Catholic to understand the truths and documents of our faith and doctrines of our faith so we can not explain them, but better understand them and internalize them for ourselves?
I think you touched on a critical point. First, you have to know what the basics are, and then you say, what does that mean for me? Does it really change my life? Does it really help me live my life? Does it enrich the lives of people I love? And that takes time for personal reflection, personal prayer, personal meditation within the context of the liturgical spiritual life of the Church. And each individual has an enormous responsibility to do that. We have the Catechism of the Catholic Church, we have the Scriptures, we have many resources, but we need to take the time to not only know the faith, to love it, make it our own.
What about that sense of division? How important is it for us to work on not being divided?
Well, first, within the Church, we have many factions, and we have to be at peace with one another, respecting one another with our various viewpoints. But we can only reach out to others in love and see if they respond or not. Some denominations do, others don't. We have a lot of work to do.
Father Jeff, just one final thought.
We're a lot better off with an ecumenical spirit rather than one that is prejudicial against all others.
For Wineskins, I'm Father Jim Korda.
And I'm Father Jeffrey Mickler of the Society of St. Paul.
For more information and to listen to Wineskins, visit the website of the Catholic Diocese of Youngstown at www.doi.org. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hello, I'm Bishop Dave Bonner of the Diocese of Youngstown. Christmas is a blessed time to remember the miraculous gift of God's love in Jesus, the newborn King. We recall the angel's message announced over 2,000 years ago. Today, in the city of David is born to you a Savior, who is Christ the Lord. As we celebrate his birth, may his gifts of love and peace be born again in our hearts and homes this Christmas season.
By the time we can walk, each of us yearns for the joy that comes from being able to do for ourselves. Church World Service believes that being self-reliant is a joy everyone should share. So around the block or around the world, Share the joy. Church World Service.
Our song today is by Daniel Smith. It is from his CD entitled Joy to the World.
Shepherds in fields as they lay, in fields where they lay, keeping their sheep on a cold winter's night that was so deep. Noel, 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 born is the King of Israel. They looked up and saw a star shining in the east, beyond them far. And to the earth it gave great light, and so it continued both day and night. Noel, 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 born is the King of Israel. Let us all with one accord sing praises to our heavenly Lord. Let man make heaven and earth of naught, and with his blood mankind hath bought. Born is the King. Born is the King of
Our scripture reflections for this Nativity of the Lord Christmas Day will be by Father Zack Coulter. He is pastor of St. Joseph Church in Randolph and St. Peter of the Fields Church in Rootstown.
Merry Christmas! You know, this year we get to celebrate something special. Only every 7 years, when Christmas itself falls on a Sunday. And so we get the dual celebration of the Sunday Mass and the celebration of Christmas. And it's a beautiful day to celebrate Christmas because Sunday is the 8th day. It's the new day. It's the start of the week. It's the start of something new. It's why we celebrate on that day, because it's that beginning. And so we start every week by coming to Mass, by receiving the Eucharist, by celebrating in community. And today, we get to celebrate something even greater. Not just the coming of Christ in the Eucharist, but the coming of Christ into the entire world at Christmas time. We get to celebrate the incarnation itself. And so one thing I'm going to give you with an encouragement this year, and that's to keep celebrating. You know, so often I feel like we get lost in Christmas. We started early and earlier. I know I heard my first Christmas song in October, and I'll admit, I was a little annoyed by it. But that's because I'm in my most Christmassy mood on December 26th, the day after Christmas, when everything is, all the big celebrations are done, and it's just nice and calm, and I get to be with my family. And that's the most time I want to hear those Christmas songs and celebrate all the Christmassy things and eat the Christmas cookies and do all that. And sometimes people have already shut it down. They've been playing Christmas songs for 3 months, but they can't play it for the day after Christmas. You know, brothers and sisters, it is a Christmas season. And it's supposed to be a season. That's an important thing, that we celebrate for 12 days. You know, it's not just a song. The 12 days of Christmas is this season. It's an ongoing celebration. And it's a reminder to us that the mystery that we celebrate, the mystery of Jesus Christ coming into the world, cannot be summed up in just one day. That it demands us to continually renew that season. Just as the mystery of the Easter season is played out over 50 days, so too the mystery of Christmas is played out in this special way. And so, brothers and sisters, my encouragement to you is to keep celebrating, to make sure that you make the Christmas season a true season, to keep wishing people Merry Christmas, to keep that season of giving alive by making use of your time, talent, and treasure, of glorifying God through your actions, of, just being that little bit happier, because even though the days are dark and the weather is cold, we still can keep the light of Christ keeping us warm. That is the beauty of the Christmas season, and that is something worth carrying on that whole 12 days. So, brothers and sisters, Merry Christmas, and keep celebrating. For Wineskins, I'm Father Zachary Coulter.
As we celebrate God incarnate in Jesus Christ, we must love as Christ has loved us. We must do more than just pray for peace on earth. We must work for peace on earth. So we must do what Christ has done for others. Wineskins is made possible by the annual Diocesan Appeal, the Catholic Communication Campaign, and St. Paul's Catholic Books and Gifts. The program is produced by the Roman Catholic Diocese of Youngstown. I'm your host, Father Jim Korda, wishing you a blessed Sunday. We of Wineskins want to express our very best wishes and blessings to all of you, and have a Merry Christmas.
Hello, I'm Bishop Dave Bonner of the Diocese of Youngstown. Christmas is a blessed time to remember the miraculous gift of God's love in Jesus, the newborn King. We recall the angel's message announced over 2,000 years ago. Today, in the city of David is born to you a Savior, who is Christ the Lord. As we celebrate his birth, may his gifts of love and peace be born again in our hearts and homes this Christmas season.
What have you done for your marriage today?
I gave my wife a hug this morning. I told her I love her.
I did her hair this morning. I think it looks pretty good.
I cooked my husband's favorite breakfast.
I bought her an orchid.
What have I done for my marriage today? I sent my husband a love email.
I read the newspaper to my wife, and it cracked her up. She's still laughing.
What have you done for your marriage today? Make a change for the better. Need help? Go to foryourmarriage.org, a message from the Catholic Church.